Hi, good evening, everybody. Welcome to what we consider the Americana Dip-shittery podcast here at One Love Massive. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to dctbd. I am Michelle Busch. I am the B in the dctbd. And this evening, we've got a wonderful show for you. I am here with my co-host, as always, the lovely and the beautiful, oh wait a minute, that's me. the most superior lawyer of them all, Mr. Ian Taronji.
Good evening.
Good evening. And as always, my boo, my partner in crime, Mr. Marcus K. Dowling.
Marcus C.K. Dowling, D-W-L-I-N-G on all social.
On all social.
Yes.
They can follow you.
No, they can't.
Okay.
Absolutely.
They can't follow me. They can follow me on Twitter.
They can follow me on Twitter. That's about it.
That's about it. Yeah.
And so, last night, if everybody knows or does not know, I was a special guest on the DC As Whoop Whoop Show. And so this evening, whoop whoop, some of my church members watch. Okay.
I can't.
No, yes you can. So
That's good, though.
The other voice you're hearing is the man himself, Mr. Marcus Donovan from the DCS Show. Also housed here at One Love Massive Podcast Media. He is our guest for the evening.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
I know you wore your best polo shirt, man.
Oh, I've been at meetings all day, man.
She really has.
Actually, I've been like politic all day.
little bit.
We'll get into that.
I want to over here a lot.
So, yeah, thank you for having me on. It's kind of weird sitting on this side, but
Yes.
apparently this is my new side, so I get used to it.
Yeah.
Gotta get used
We
to
have
it.
to blend you in with
There needs to be a contrast.
Apparently I have a really shiny head.
Yeah.
Which is crazy, because, like,
You got the same thing.
no, I know, right? It's wild. I
Mine's
guess-
freshly shaven.
Yeah. Mine is too. Mine is shaving every other day.
Yeah,
I'm
so
too
Ian-
lazy for that shit.
Yeah, so Ian, Ian, did you shave today? I didn't shave today.
I shaved about like 4 hours ago or so.
Oh,
You didn't have court today, did you?
No.
I am pretty much to where I shave when I have to go to court,
Yeah.
or I'm trying to get my old lady. She doesn't like to scratch.
And welcome back, Ian. I know you were not here last week.
Thank you.
Shout out to Mike Madison who filled in for you last week. Last
Did a
week
great
was
job.
crazy. So on this show,
I am looking forward to the day when he can be on and I can be on at the same time. I feel like we had a lot of spice to the mix.
Yeah, I mean,
so he's great. He's great. I think he has a tremendous presence, and I always enjoy watching him when he's. Sometimes I'm like, is this show been over with? But then no.
Oh, that's why. It's lies and half truths.
Oh my goodness.
I'm fishing for Kevin.
Yeah, well, as always, we want to shout out the boss. She is here, the one and only Miss Molly Rudin.
The Queen Bee.
She is
Hey
back.
now.
She is back there doing her thing. So shout out to her cast, One Love Massive. We are housed here at Washington Post Building. Something special is going on upstairs, downstairs. I don't know.
I got stuck in the elevator. Up and down, up and down.
Up and down. I swear, that's politics here in the city as of recently. So, of course, DCTBD, we are a political, culture, music, political, all types of American type of show.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're just going to roll right on in to what we have to talk about this week. A little bit of politics. We've had a interesting, non-interesting, sad week. And as we roll into Monday, the coverage over the weekend just with shootings, with bombs, and it's just a lot. It's very overwhelming. I think we said, it can be overwhelming. There's a lot of misguided information. It's just, what happened? Did we think that this was going to happen as soon as it did? Or was this just a sleeping beast that was going to come out? Where do we even start with this?
So I have some thoughts on this as a poli-sci major in college, and sort of like my area of academic interest has been the conservative movement in America and also worldwide.
Right.
So I feel like I have a pretty good grounding in how the conservative movement founded, how it became a part of the Republican Party, how it kind of took over the Republican Party. And I think starting with the election of Bill Clinton, you saw this like really virulent right-wing ecosystem that became very profitable. It became very profitable to prey on people's fear, anger, racism, and we have seen an expansion of that. And we've seen then the same way that any business responds to its marketplace. The Republican Party, you know, kind of tried to latch on to this like really virulent conservative media ecosystem, and all of a sudden, you know, they own the crazies, and rather than kind of like bringing them into the tent and keeping, you know, a lid on the pot, the crazies have kind of taken over. I mean, this is a 30-year project that's gone on in the conservative movement that's like kind of led us to Trump and led us to authoritarianism and led us to this like cycle of political violence that really I think threatens to undermine our society.
Yeah, I feel like the main thing to me is that we're a week out from the midterm elections, which actually makes perfect sense for this kind of like, you know, hate, you know, mongering to
hashtag early vote.
Right, you know, right before the midterm elections, we get all of the crazy, which was my expectation going in. I also feel like there's a lowest common denominator factor to what Trump has done. That's important to think about in all of this, in the sense that if you go back to like '92, go back to like the Gingrich era, there was at least a level of intellect and intelligence and awareness because there was like new policy being formulated, new concepts being advocated by the party, the Republican Party that is, that were you know like that were showcasing some level of like actual intellect, which is what made Newt Gingrich intriguing, was the fact that okay, he's gonna engage us in like intellectual discourse about like the modernizing or conservatizing of American policy. This is not that. This is just absolute.
It's not even close.
Not even close, right? It's like absolute lowest common denominator, like engagement.
But you don't think that this is what Fox News has done to the kind of conservatives under the tent? Like, I'm not talking just Fox News. I mean Limbaugh, Coulter, and it's not, you know, it's the AM radio, it's the books.
Okay, so
the Ann Coulter, you know, calling liberals treasonous. I mean, you don't think that this is sort of like degenerated that movement, and then you also throw in anti-intellectualism, which has come in. I mean, you know,
there's a separation of church and state there between the anti-intellectual movement, which is on the right, and what these talk show hosts / demagogues have done on the left. Whereas somebody like Ann Coulter, at least these shows are presented with a modicum of intelligence. Then you get to Alex Jones.
Here we go.
Rabbit hole.
Right.
Rabbit hole.
Right. And you're like, okay, so when you get to Alex Jones, there's the presentation of it that looks like it's intellectual. But then in execution, it's not that at all. It's the complete polar opposite. And there's a lot to that. So I wanted to make sure you jumped in on this as well.
No, I mean, I got a question about Alex Jones, though. When he first started, he was kind of more liberal. Is that me just having a bad memory, or just thinking he was always like a conspiracy theorist, and it was started with the Busch era, right?
No, he was a liberal for sure, but he was more libertarian.
He was playing to the market, I guess, because Bush was president. So I guess he plays up to the president, if you think about it.
Well, it was that libertarianism that he was kind of like advocating, like faux libertarianism, which gets so many of these
which
like
is called libertarianism.
Right. No, but it's a faux libertarianism.
I don't think very highly of libertarianism.
Is it like
as an ideology?
Is it like faux locks or fox locks?
Fox locks.
I think you wanted to say something, right, Michelle?
No.
Okay,
I mean, but you said something about Newt. It went back with the Contract of America, and like, he knew he put in place in a plan. He's like, I'm going to turn. He said he was going to turn the whole country around, essentially.
But that was the thing, is that it was presented in the same way that Ronald Reagan said it's morning again in America.
Yeah.
Like there's this level of
got a plan.
Right. Well, it's not even so much a plan. It's a level of positivity that doesn't require you to blow up a church or to kill, you know.
Yeah, because there's no positivity right now.
There's no reason to kill 10 people or do any of that, because you're like, okay, so I'm just going to stand behind this man.
We did have an assault weapons ban at the time.
But before, yes, very true. But it was also before it was the boogeyman. Now it's like, oh, your neighbor. Like
it's the pizza delivery man.
Yeah, no
literally.
Shit. I mean, no,
and a stripper.
Yeah.
I love everything about that. That made me laugh.
He's a stripper.
How much more Florida can you be?
A pizza delivery man and a stripper.
Like that is awesome, and a Native American at that.
He's textbook.
No,
Florida.
no.
Oh, he's not. He's white now.
Oh no. The Seminole Nation.
No.
He's not one of us.
Not our guy.
Kanye ain't us. He ain't. Yeah, okay.
The Seminole Nation.
All right.
The Seminole Nation.
Disinvited
he
to the
is
Seminole.
disinvited to the tribal.
Yeah, the tribal gathering. He's gone.
No.
Aww,
No.
So sad. I love the powwows. They're fun.
My goodness,
No
my
smoke,
goodness.
smoke for you.
So this is, I was thinking a lot about this because when you get to the level of political violence, this is where the talk about authoritarianism, this is where the talk of losing the democracy, that's where it really becomes real and becomes scary, because the whole point of democracy is that you don't resort to violence in order to rule. You rule by consent of the governed.
Right.
I mean, this is the theoretical underpinning. Otherwise we just go into warlordism. It becomes The Walking Dead. I mean, if we just,
And you don't mess with the Sabbath. You don't mess Friday night, Saturday, Sunday.
Look,
just wait Monday through Thursday.
Shoot them on a Wednesday. That's not good either. I mean, look.
Understand what I'm saying. It's not good across the board. Period. Point blank. No pun intended.
Damn.
That was bad.
Damn.
That stuff is left over from last night.
Do a shot.
Give me a shot of this good ketchup vinegar from Five Guys, who is not a sponsor of ours.
Not a sponsor.
But that's the thing. It was just like you didn't hear about this on certain days. So we wake up.
But what kind of impact does this have on our democracy? I mean, I'm reading this article, and I'm going to put it in the show notes because it's really. I'm not someone who pimps a lot of articles because I like to.
No, that's Marcus
think,
over here.
Think no, but
I do share you a lot.
No,
so
and
that's the article pimp over
know,
here
he's
to my left.
He's our curator. but
curator.
this article is really tremendous because it was from a Canadian perspective, like Canadians looking at the United States and what's going on politically and culturally, and seeing, talking to academics and seeing the sort of the kindling of a fire of, civil wars. What
this
we
is
see,
a blaze.
civil wars that we see in other countries, and some of the things that they pointed out that are sort of common in all, sort of like degenerating democracies, hyperpartisanship, a zero-sum gain on all political life. An undermining of institutions, particularly institutions that check political power.
Right.
We're going to start to see, and we're already starting to see in many parts of the world, environmentally caused mass migration. I mean, anybody who knows their U.S. history and knows what happened in the Dust Bowl era, which was a drought in the middle of the country that lasted almost a decade, and just devastated the economies and people, and caused mass migration.
Right.
Caused mass migration into California, and we saw Californians who hated the Okies, and I mean, this is when you see this type of mass migration that's caused by environmental factors. That's only something that we're gonna continue to see. And then the last piece of it is when you see a ruling majority that begins to lose privilege, lose authority, lose power. And they did this study in 2014 about Muslim versus Hindu violence in India. Hindus are obviously the vast majority, and Muslims are a minority. But in particular pockets of the country where Muslims clustered and began to assert political power locally was where you saw the most violence against them. And it feels like we're check. These are the foundational elements, like, of a society breaking down, of a societal civil war.
Right. I just want to add in, there's the notion here that public education is a lot to blame for the reason why we haven't degenerated into civil war. And the fact that if you're taught in the public schools in the United States of America, you're taught that the Civil War was literally the worst thing that ever happened in America.
Yep.
So it's like the idea in the 21st century that we would ever even contemplate the idea of going to a bifurcated battle for 3 years is illogical. People wouldn't even consider it. I mean, that's the fascination, is that we wouldn't go there, but the idea that instead we're going to go to a simmering cauldron of violence for every day for possibly the next 20 years. That's where I feel like we're headed, and that's where I feel like that's where we are right now. Like CNN's had bomb threats twice in the last 96 hours.
Really?
Yeah, like that's a real thing, and that'll happen, and that could feasibly happen every day
Forever.
forever. Because that's where we are, because we have weaponized Trump. The genius of Trump, the sick Joker-like genius of Donald Trump, is that he has weaponized his base in a way where every time that there is a need for his base to stand up, they will stand up violently.
Yeah.
They won't, like, it's a different thing. It's like, okay, so the issue now with the Democrats, we talk about the Democrats every week and how many problems they have. The problem now with the Democrats is the Democratic Party doesn't have this temerity to tell, their supporters to get angry and get violent.
Right.
And not even the Republican Party has that desire to tell Republican Party followers to get angry and get violent. But people who specifically vote for Donald Trump, who in my mind are neither Democrats nor Republicans, but they're a different subset of everything going on.
They're a different breed.
Right. They're like, hey, let's get ratchet.
So with the midterms that are literally 8 days away, you might as well just say 7 days away because the polls are pretty much closed.
By the way, election party?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that click share. And
It's
all,
about to go down.
Comment and election party.
We'll talk about that.
Yeah, towards the end.
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to make people vote?
I sure as fuck hope so. I really do, because like people need to. There needs to be a break on this.
Because I saw
there needs to be a break on this.
Did I post it? Maybe I did or maybe I didn't. But it was a NBC news story, and it said young voters may vote in, or it was something crazy, and I was just like, why would they even write it like that? It's the media.
But the reason they write it that way is because voters 18 to 29 in a midterm election,
they're not voting.
They're typically like 14, 15%.
Right.
Right.
So
and I said it last night on the show.
Because they just don't feel like it's important.
The early vote numbers for D.C., I don't know what Maryland looks like. I don't know what Virginia looks like. Bless you, baby. Is that the numbers were low.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, I can walk 4 blocks, not have to stand in any lines November 6th, and vote. Ding, done.
I'll say this, though.
But it's the passion of the vote.
Right. The one thing that I will say is that Trump, by standing behind those inciting violence, and not standing in front of them and being angry.
Right.
Oh, his words on Saturday.
Right, but standing behind.
Say it, other Marcus.
These people. It's perverse. It's a perverse level of actual genius to stand behind the people that are weaponized and to say, these are the people who are bravely going out and doing all the work. Because what happens is that for every person, and this is going to sound horribly stereotypical, but it's the absolute truth, because these are the people that he's specifically going after. People that are super marginalized in hyper-suburban communities throughout the Midwestern American United States. People that are hyper-marginalized in the southern United States.
Break down hyper-marginalized
for
everybody, for the smart people that watch the show.
So you're not,
and for everybody else.
So if you're in a city like Atlanta, Georgia,
Stacey Abrams,
and you're not you're not a black person living in impoverished conditions, but if you're a white person that's living in impoverished conditions, you're voting. You're absolutely voting, because you look at you look at Cesar Sayoc in Florida and you say, I know him.
Mm-hmm.
You look at the shooter in Pittsburgh and you know that person. You know all of these people because you identify with them. So even further, if you talk about, like, say, 25 miles outside of Frederick, Maryland, in a hyper suburb of a suburbanized area, where you're literally on the fringes of society, and you're working in middle to lower income jobs and barely getting by, and you know that 3/4 of your family hasn't been employed in the last 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
These are real people in America. They have the right to vote. That's all they have. And if you say that they have the right to vote, then if they vote somebody into office that's able to understand their plight, they can look right now at Donald Trump and see that people are getting jobs who look just like them everywhere in the country.
Where?
Where?
Where are they getting jobs?
They're getting low-income jobs.
They've always been there.
Right, but they're getting them now. They weren't getting them before.
So this goes back to like what we talked about moving the factories and them taking the trade jobs and
right. So if you look at like
the promises that he.
So yeah, I'll put it like this: like if you look at unemployment right now in America, it's dropping, but people in the middle class are like, wait, I've been living off of unemployment benefits for 2 years. How does this work?
26 weeks.
I think we've got people in the middle class who are like, jobs are plentiful. I've got 3 of them.
Yeah.
Where?
Right,
You know? And that's like, and I think that's what's going on.
Right, but that's the gig economy, and if you look at Uber and Lyft and all those other companies, they'll tell you straight up that it's not working because these are still people who have massive gaps in their employment, and they're not able to actually, survive without credit, without debt.
I got a question. I mean, maybe this is a dumb question, but like, if you have more than one job, does that affect the outcome of the numbers at all? Like, what's it actually based on? The census of the people, or actually how many jobs are picked up?
It's based on how many jobs are picked up and how many hours you're working. So if you're working full-time labor, if you're working like a 40-hour-a-week-job, no matter what you get, if you're making $10 an hour as opposed to like, $8.75 an hour, or you're making $15 an hour, if you're getting like full-time employment. So this is not in any way related to the gig economy in any way, shape, or form. So like gig economy people in the middle class are like, wait, well, I'm not in that number, and they're not.
Okay.
They're actively not. But people at the bottom and people at the top are working just fine right now. People in the middle are specifically not working, and that's exactly what Trump wants.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Because the middle class people are the people that are going to like actually have the time
To go vote.
to be able to sit down. Not even that. They'll have the time to be able to sit down and to think actively about their vote and to think actively about what's actually going on. When you boil it down to like brass tacks, like economics and sociology and just basic human needs, then you're aiming at a part of the population that's all they have the time to think about. Like, am I making literally enough money to pay my rent? Am I making literally enough money to be able to, pay for everything that, for my,
A
three
pair
kids.
of stockings to wear to church tomorrow.
There you go.
Okay.
There you go.
Vacation,
Vacation.
a retirement,
Groceries.
a house, a
Right.
car,
Bus fare.
2 cars.
I mean, I feel like, but that's not where we're at, though.
That's not where we're at.
That's a different level.
That was what I grew up with, and granted, I grew up in white Midwest suburbs, even though I'm DC native, and it was, I went to a private Catholic all boys high school, and I went to school with, other kids whose dads worked in a factory,
Right.
One dad, one bread earner, working 40 hours a week, punching in, punching out, paid vacation 2 weeks a year, a retirement, a pension, could afford a house,
It's a different type.
could afford to send his kids to a private Catholic high school.
It's a different type of community.
It's a different economy. It's a completely different society than what what I grew up in. And that's going to get into like issues of the failures of capitalism and neoliberalism, and
But I mean, I think
but
that's-
that's functionally where we are. We have a
Right.
middle class that's hollowed out, just like you mentioned. I mean,
Yeah.
the people who are actually in that middle strata think of themselves as lower class. Those are the people who don't have $400 if there's an emergency. Those are the people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Those are the people working multiple jobs.
Yeah, they basically said that in America, there's not many of us that have $1,000 in the saving account.
Nope.
Not at all.
And so with the news this morning, as we continue to roll through, all of the politics that have popped up, especially over the weekend, this morning, Brazil. You want to talk about economics and families, and so they've gotten their own version of Trump.
Yeah, they have.
Isn't he worse?
They said he's worse.
Jair Bolsonaro.
Ooh, say
just
it. Look,
that was
say
kind
it
of
again.
sexy,
Ooh,
dude.
say
Do
it
it again.
again.
Jair.
Come on,
Jair.
guys. The disturbing thing about Bolsonaro is it's kind of a continuation of this right-wing populism that we're seeing across the Western world, here in the United States with Trump, but also, there's what is it, the National Liberation, the Marine Le Pen party in France, she wasn't able to beat Macron, but he's probably going to be vulnerable in the next election.
Right.
We
can also wrap this into
Angela Merkel
stepping down
today.
That was crazy. We talked about that in the car. We were
did.
like, what?
And she is already very right of center.
Right.
She's already very, very right of center. And Germany, I think, can only go farther right with her stepping down. But also Turkey, Poland, Hungary.
Yeah.
Obviously, Russia is a kleptocracy.
And
North Korea
I don't think we hear about Poland and Hungary and countries.
Turkey.
Yeah, we don't really hear Turkey. I think we hear about, but we don't.
He's a popular guy, but I think the thing. Okay, so here's my take on Eastern Europe.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think you hit on like a really, really important point in all of these. These are popular people.
Right.
These are not, these are not people who rode in on tanks and surrounded the Capitol and took power.
Who did that?
These are popular.
Who did that?
Bolsonaro got like 57, 58.
He got 55% of the vote, so he won by 10%.
Of the vote.
Yeah.
Erdogan, like you said, is super popular. Putin is super popular in Russia, and
wasn't that more fear though than anything with Putin?
No, Putin's cool.
It's more. If you're an elite, it's more fear. If you're just an average person on the street, I mean,
So here's the tragedy of all of this. The tragic part of this whole thing.
Turn the news on, you'll see it.
Is that all of these people that we're talking about, Bolsonaro, we're talking about Erdogan, we're talking about Marine Le Pen, we're talking about all these, these are charismatic people who have replaced actual policy conversation with charismatic dialogue.
Right.
And so in America, when we got into the issue of dealing with people that used charismatic dialogue, we elected Ronald Reagan president for 2 terms, and we
an actor.
Right, and that's what happened. And we got to the point now with Trump where Trump. The funny part is too is when people try to ascribe the notion of all these people are similar to Trump. Trump's way over here, because the thing with Trump that's fascinating is that as compared to Bolsonaro, Trump's charismatic dialogue isn't actually charismatic. It's just dumb at this point. It's just literally what is the lowest common denominator going to go for? I'm going to say exactly that. He's removed in the last 3 to 6 months. If you actually look at what Trump's been saying, he's removed a lot of the artifice from his conversation. He's reached this level now where he's literally 2 steps up from grunting into a microphone.
No shit. He really is.
And everybody else, though. So
I was going to make a sound effect, but
so
no,
from
I'm not.
Bolsonaro all the way across, you have people now that are occupying those spaces of using charismatic dialogue. A lot of Bolsonaro's campaign was based around the idea that he polarized people along issues of skin color. Not even race, but skin color. Because there's an issue with colorism in Brazil.
Big time colorism.
Where if you are closer to African in your heritage, you are considered to be other than and put upon and living in the favela and not worthy of communication and conversation with people of a higher economic or social strata.
But that's also the history of human society. The darker you are, the more shit upon you are.
Right, but the thing is that he literally in his conversation, in his dialogue, he specifically makes direct claims about the the insignificance of darker-skinned Brazilian people.
That's fucked up.
But that's how he won.
Welcome to Americana and world dip-shittery.
World
Hashtag dip-shittery.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane to think of. Like, the fact that people, is it because they're scared? They're feared? They're scared and feared?
They love this guy. They love this guy. He's former military.
Yeah,
he's anti-establishment.
Flyboy.
I mean,
He's not bad looking. I mean, not my type. But
Donald Trump's ugly as fuck. How do we...
ugly.
I was listening to the Intercepted podcast today, and Glenn Greenwald, who's famous writer, liberal writer, and he is actually based out of Rio de Janeiro, so he's very, very close to the Brazilian.
I was gonna say this isn't the guy that whose children walked in on him.
No.
Oh.
No, it's not that guy. It's not that guy.
You don't remember the guy that was? I thought he was
No,
like
this
in
is the guy-
Rio somewhere.
This is the guy who got Snowden to Russia.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's my brain. I watch a lot of
No.
news. You
So-
don't remember the guy? I'm sorry.
But he
just
was like,
railroad it.
yeah. I mean, he was basically saying that there's a lot of issues in Brazilian politics right now that have kind of led to this rise. I mean, they have actually had a former president impeached, removed from
Dilma
office,
Rousseff.
arrested, and Brazil does not have. We think of ourselves as a relatively young democracy at almost 250 years. Brazil has had a thriving democracy for all of about 35 years.
Right.
So, I mean, there was a military dictatorship until like 1985.
Yeah, and Dilma Rousseff, who was the former prime minister of Brazil, she was removed because of corruption.
That was the hyperpartisanship, like we're talking about. And when we start talking about the foundational elements of societal disintegration and civil war, hyperpartisanship, zero-sum gain. You lose the election, but fuck it, we're gonna, trump up some charges to get you impeached. And look, I don't follow Brazilian politics closely enough to know whether Dilma Rousseff was in fact guilty of whatever their version of high crimes and misdemeanors is that forms the basis of impeachment and removal. But that's pretty drastic step.
Yeah, I'll add to this also the idea that if you think about Brazil also had massive economic issues where people believed 10 years ago that Brazil was the future of global economics.
It's an oil economy.
Right, like people are like, okay, they're gonna make all this money and they're gonna be like the future of world economics. Like, I know, like when I first started writing about music in 2008, so many people were excited about baile funk because the Brazilian economy was so strong that this music was going to be able to come out of this thriving economy so that American labels wouldn't have to like spend that much money.
Musicians were going to get paid.
Right. It's like, oh, well, this stuff is already popping, so like,
pay me my money.
Right. Let's just grab it off the top.
That's run me my money.
Right.
Just run me now.
Run me my money.
Y'all got that. Y'all got that right here on DCTBD. Run me my money.
Run me my money.
That might be the name of the show next week.
Yeah, so it's even crazier
Run me my money.
is that the oil economy fell flat on its face, as oil economies tend to do.
As all oil economies do.
Right. If you base your economy off of one resource, and that resource falls flat, which the oil economy did in Brazil, then you have massive
Russia.
economic strife. You have massive issues with why am I drawing a blank on the word?
Social unrest.
Yeah, social unrest. You have graft.
Graft, yeah, for sure.
All these issues, and what happens is that you eventually get to a point where Brazil, remember this, they then looked at the World Cup as like the big thing that was going to like save them economically.
Ruined everything.
And then that's the point. So they're like, okay, we're gonna turn to the world and say, come play soccer here for 2 weeks and save us.
No.
And they spent all the money they had left on tearing down the rainforest, which tears away all of the liberals away from any sort of political cohesion. Because they're like, wait, you're taking down a rainforest to build a soccer stadium?
Yes.
Really? Why would you do that?
For 2 weeks.
Right, for 2 weeks. And then you don't know how to repurpose these buildings.
Nope.
And so you end up with a situation where there's massive unrest, there's no trust in government, and also you have these giant buildings that you must walk around every single day to remind you how much you socioeconomically suck as a country.
And Jair Bolsonaro gets elected president.
Exactly.
There it
in the
is.
midst of that, because he could look at all this and go, that is wrong. In the same way that Donald
He doesn't have to come up with a solution.
No.
No,
He can
it's just wrong.
He just
Point
point
at it.
Point at it.
You can point at the big
wrong.
giant soccer stadium in
Look
the
at that
middle
thing.
of Rio and go, that should not be there. That is wrong.
So can I point at the one in Southwest? Oh no, I won't do that.
Let me make one last quick point.
That is wrong. Oh.
Another foundational sort of element of civil wars is we talk about the undermining of institutions. What does that mean? When we have a president who actively undermines the FBI, the Department of Justice, the federal judiciary,
Every
the free
day.
press. The free press, I mean, which kind of brings us full circle back to these bombings.
Yep.
You know, I mean, sent not just to public officials, but CNN, and it wasn't even. It isn't even so much of an ideological thing. It was just whoever's talking shit about Trump, whoever's criticizing him, they deserve to die, or at least be scared, terrorized into silence or into acquiescence. Or I mean, none of these bombs went off, but the FBI claims that they were all actual real bombs. Which
were.
means they could have gone off. I suspect they didn't go off because either the guy's a moron and was using bomb making instructions from like YouTube, or
Ooh.
He is a stripper.
He is a stripper.
or he intended just to scare people and send a message.
Well, the thing
and it sends a message of a threatening message to critics of the president, and that is. You know, this guy, that gets into real scary shit.
Well, what
Real
pissed me,
scary
what
shit.
pissed me off was that there was a woman on Twitter that was like, "Hello, this man is harassing me.
Yeah.
He needs to be stopped." Oh, ding, 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 ding! And look what he did. He started sending bombs.
Yep.
Yeah, nobody does anything.
Nobody listened. It's like we've got to, instead of folks calling the cops on people barbecuing, we need to be paying attention that I'm being harassed by this individual and
By this angry white man.
Is he really white?
No, he is.
what's
Yes.
wrong?
He
I
does
know-
not look white.
He does not look white.
Here's how.
He has a great tail.
Here's my
I
my
mean,
rule.
He is a Florida stripper.
Marcus doesn't look white.
Here's
the
my
other
rule.
Marcus.
Here's my rule for how you know you're white
Confused.
or you're not. Are you going to get indiscriminately pulled over by the police?
I
No,
mean,
I'm good.
Yes.
Okay.
No.
So
That's
speak-
to me. That's
speaking-
the dividing line.
Speaking of that,
Because I get people who are like, Ian, you're Hispanic. You're Hispanic. I am Hispanic. I'm white.
Right.
I'm a white guy. I will pass in.
You
in-
are Hispanic.
In every.
yeah. So speaking of that, when we see
Wow,
okay,
thank you.
so
I am.
So let's think about it. He is white because this man drove around
And that,
in
in a white-
van.
in a white
in a
van.
van.
Why is it always
that
a white
had-
van?
That had CNN sucks. Basically, CNN sucks. Go Trump. I could bomb someone tomorrow.
we talked about this
written on the side
last
of the
night
truck.
on the show.
Pictures, crosshairs.
Like it's- yeah,
Hillary
crosshairs.
Clinton, Michael Moore.
Right.
So what do we do from here on
Barack
out?
Obama.
If we see it when those ridiculous Trump trucks that come into this city all the time, do we call the cops on them now just like they called cops on the barbecue people? Hey, I see a Trump supporter over there.
Yeah.
He's got crosshairs or some shit on his truck. Do we call the cops on them now?
I mean,
I'm gonna do it. I'm
right.
damn right I'm gonna
In
do
that case,
If I just see anybody in a red hat,
In that
I'm
case-
triggered,
in
so I
that-
got to call the cops.
Oh,
that's
no.
actually a good idea.
Let me tell you, I saw two. Oh, if I could have taken a picture. So I was at a particular restaurant in DC very quickly, and my best friend and I walked in. It was after the liquor event, and these two girls who are no older than probably 10, full on MAGA sweatshirts, hats, little purses, whatever it is, and I was just like, and they're just sitting there, just a smiling and a grinning and a cheesing, and everybody's just looking at them like this.
I know.
I mean,
Are you joking us?
These people come from across the country, and I always tell people, come to your nation's capital. It's beautiful. You should come.
Yeah. Come
I'm
on
not,
over. Come
I'm
on.
not one of these DC people who bitches about tourists because I lived in Ohio, and I love living someplace where people actually want to come visit.
When you come
rather than
visit, make
leave.
sure you make a stop in Congress Heights.
But don't. Yeah, I think people.
Come visit Ward 8. It's a beautiful side of town.
Yeah, with
The
your
Great Ward
Make
8.
America Great Again.
Come on over.
Come on down.
Come join us at St. Elizabeth.
Go visit Howard
God, that place
University
is
with your
scary.
Make America Great
No,
Again.
see,
hat.
that-
that's
no,
they've
no,
actually
that
done
happened.
That's
I know it happened. That's
no,
why I
that
said it.
happened,
That's why I
and
said
that
it.
wasn't a good look.
Yeah, I lived down the street when that happened, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh,
that
shit.
was not a good look.
do
And nor was Friday
do
at the
that.
White House. I got in trouble on Facebook. Did y'all see that?
No.
So I posted about the what do we call it? Oh,
The
the
Black
su-
Conservative.
the Sunken Place Fest is the name of it. So somebody came.
I thought the word coonery had popped
I
up
did.
somewhere. It's not my place to say.
I
but
did.
I thought I read that word somewhere.
I called the post Coonery Training 101.
Wow. I did see that.
And somebody came on my page and was like, "What is wrong with you?" And and I was like, "All right, let me take it down." So I said, since I got in trouble for posting this, let's let Black Twitter talk about it.
You don't need to take that down. My whole thing is this, man. My truth doesn't have to make you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
And that is why we
It
do
just doesn't.
dctbd.
And that's why we do dctbd. That's why, like, people think that I'm so political on Facebook, and it's like, you don't even understand. For every post that I make, there's 15 that I've written out, and I just delete.
that I didn't.
And I
that
just
didn't.
delete. There's 15. I swear to you, there's 15 for every one
Yeah.
that I put
Okay.
up.
I
And
just-
then, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
real quick. There's a black silent majority now in America.
Is that's not the Black Twitter that
No,
got
there's
your shit?
there's a black silent majority that now exists in America.
Yeah.
Headed by Candace Owens and
oh,
Kanye West.
the Sunken Place
Oh
crew.
my God.
This is a real thing now. They had their little event, and the crazy part is that when Trump announced that they got Cesar Sayok, he was announcing this in front of that convention.
Yep.
And the whoops and hollers that came from
Did
the
you say
crowd.
the
Whoops.
Whoops.
There was whoops and hollers.
Whoops and hollers.
Who let the dogs out?
Yeah, whoop. It was whoop, whoop, there it is. I thought you knew.
Oh my goodness. So with all the craziness that we talk about on here, we do have a special guest this evening.
hey.
I was on
Yes.
his show. Now he's on our show.
Of course.
Hi, folks. How's
We're
everybody?
calling this synergy. This is
Synergy.
This is corporate synergy and
corporate, huh?
Ooh, corporate.
organizational synergy. How about that?
I like the synergy part. I like
Synergy.
it. I like
Okay.
it.
So we do.
I love all three of you.
Synergy sounds like a 70s rock band or something.
I don't know,
I
it
mean, it
sounds
would
like
be-
it sounds like kombucha.
I mean, if you look at it,
Journey with
rock.
special guests, synergy.
Yes.
synergy.
you were singing. Who was singing Journey? No, I was singing
was me.
Aerosmith.
Yeah.
It was. I was.
I don't sing.
Yeah, I'm not.
I hum.
I'm the one that recorded the video in your car today.
Oh, is that you?
I'm just showing it to you. Yeah, because What has happened?
What in the hell's going on?
We're harmonizing. We're harmonizing.
You think that's
here.
harmony?
What was it? Bless you, baby. What was in the French fries that y'all ate?
Oh, so I didn't tell you this.
We're living together in perfect harmony.
There it is.
Ebony and
Ivory.
Man.
wow.
How cliched can this be?
Marcus.
Well, we got the whites on this side.
Yeah. See, y'all can't see that. It's real racial in here this evening.
Hey, I just sat in the empty seat.
Yeah. See, I'm sitting in your seat.
I know.
This is the circle of trust. This is the circle of
Yes.
trust here,
Yes,
and
indeed.
it's all good. It is all good.
Yeah. So, Marcus, welcome.
You guys just stay over on your side.
Hey,
No, I'm just
hey,
kidding.
hey.
Wow.
I
Hey,
kid.
man.
I
Hey.
kid. I kid.
Hey,
It's all
man.
love
Hey,
here at
man.
DCTBD.
Welcome to the show, Marcus.
Thank you. Thank you for having me
Glad
on.
to have you here.
I'm finally glad to have a Monday off so I can actually do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we did something for our own lives, and
Yes.
shout out to what we do.
Mental health is a motherfucker.
Yeah, this shit is real.
So, yeah, so I ended up quitting my job, if you guys haven't figured it out, because I have some family people on the way out, so it's just kind of been building up, and I just went to my boss, and my chef was like, hey, I busted my ass for you all summer. I worked 6 days when I should have been 5.
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. I really can't do this anymore. I need to take some time and start going home, and which, if you don't know me, I'm from Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, so I go home as much as I can. I can't do it with 1 day off. I need 2, because I need to go down there, do all the family shit, and drive back.
Right.
And I got to do laundry on my days off. So my boss just said, just go. I'm like, you motherfucker. Like, as much as I've done for you, and, that sucks for me, but that's also what happens in the restaurant industry all the time. And
A lot of turnover.
it's turnover, but you get used and abused and just thrown away.
Yeah.
It's like, what have you done for me lately? And I know it's in every industry, but ours is particularly, I mean, I guess it's the only thing I really know. It's particularly hard for us because I have done this for 20 years,
Right.
and I have watched the substance abuses. I've watched the mental health breakdowns. I've seen people flip out at work who were perfectly happy, and all of a sudden they just snap and fly off the handle. Like, where the fuck did that come from?
Right.
But it's been building up in all of us. And then,
Right.
you know, and I've noticed it with me. I've noticed over the past like couple of years, like just constantly working for someone else, and nothing's coming at it.
It's a tough business.
Yeah.
It's a tough business. I love to cook, and I get people who are always like, "Man, you should." Like, I specialize in like a lot of the Cuban and Puerto Rican dishes that my grandmother made growing up.
You should teach me something.
And I will. We should.
That.
And so I get people like, "Oh, Ian, you should open a restaurant. You should open a restaurant." It's like I worked in restaurants. I bartended. I waited tables between college and law school. You know, I was raising 2 very small children that I had at a very young age, and so it was like I was working nights and weekends and watching them, you know, staying home watching them before I started law school. And so, like, I was in that shit. I've been in those kitchens on Friday nights, and, you know, it's a tough business. And so anytime anybody's like, Ian, you should open a restaurant, I'm just like,
No. I mean, and I've opened a restaurant, so I've been the owner.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, I've seen it from a dishwasher at 14 to an owner at 33 to now being, you know, a chef at 40, and I'm just like, I'm done with this for a little bit, and you know,
having worked in restaurants, how many people do you know over the age of 55 who are still working in restaurants? Not many. I mean, it kind of grinds you out.
Not many, but it does grind you out. What I've seen has happened is a lot of the chefs that I know, if they haven't made it, if they're not at the top, or they're in corporate positions where there's an office that's doing the paperwork, administrative shit, they turn bartenders, or they turn into another aspect. Like, part of what I'm doing, I'm going to go. Luckily for me, I have a friend who owns a couple of restaurants who trust me. It was like, come on, I need a food writer. It was like perfect synergy. And she was just like, come on board. You know, you need to make some money till you figure out what you want to do. It's easy. You'll make the same amount of money half the time.
Right.
You know, so it's just like, I'm like, oh, this is great. I can do this and not have to stress, not worry about if my cooks are going to come in.
And you won't have pots and pans fall on your head.
Yeah, I'm still dealing with that.
Yeah.
So I had a couple pots fall on my head and give me a concussion.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah, that was fun.
Well, I can recommend a good lawyer for you if you.
Actually, let's talk after the show. Let's see my workers' comp.
So as you know, one of the hosts for DC is Fck Show.
Oops. When is that show, by the way?
Sunday nights at 9 o'clock.
9.
Sunday nights at 9 o'clock. That is, folks.
Yeah.
That's the DC is Fck Show
On this channel.
On this channel.
Very channel.
Sexy time at 9 o'clock.
That's right. Yes.
It is.
Yeah. So with DC, local, federal, everything rolled into and global. You know, pretty much we are the nation's capital. What do you think about the climate? And as we talked about, you know, the numbers and voting, what do you think about the climate right now in DC? Local, we're going to start with local first.
In local, I mean, so we saw a lot of things happening, especially there's a big thing with the 77 initiative that a lot of people got pissed off about because not a lot of people turned out for the vote.
Correct.
So I think it was like 14% that actually showed up, and they passed this bill that was poorly written. Nobody knew what the hell they were voting for. They just saw, minimum wage is being raised. All right, great. Problem is, they lumped in bartenders with nail technicians and valet workers. Bartenders make $200-300 a night. These other people make maybe $100 in 2 days.
Right.
And so they were trying to pass this bill, and a lot of the bartenders were like, whoa, you're getting ready to take away my livelihood. I'm going to have to start working in Virginia or Maryland. So a lot of my brothers and sisters from the front of the house got together, banned against this company called ROC, who came from California, who's not even from D.C.
How much and how often does that happen?
Jane Fonda was flying in.
Yep.
So they thought they could come to D.C. because we would have been another notch on their belt.
Yeah.
So they came here, and they didn't realize how D.C. is and how
D.C. is fun.
Like, you don't come into our city and think you're just going to change the rules. And the problem is they had good intentions.
Yeah.
But they had good intentions initially, but like at the end of the day, they want to start a whole restaurant union across the whole country.
Correct.
So that's their underlying thing. But they won't tell you that. They're going to tell you it's about people of color, women who are being raped in the bathroom for tips and shit. So they diluted their own message by being so corrupt. So they lost a lot of like respect with like councilmen, councilwomen. Like, so they really shot themselves in the foot. And then they didn't want to talk to anybody locally. They had like 5 or 6 people that constantly came to their shows or to the events. And then they started flying in, you know, the Jane Fondas and the Washington lady, what's her name from that show Scandal?
Kerry Washington.
Kerry
Washington.
Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So they just started bringing in all Chelsea Handler, and you know, they were on the Colbert Show and other shows. But what they did by doing that is they created a restaurant industry that came together, and we looked around at each other, we're like, well, shit, we don't have a group or organization. If anything's going to come back in here, because they're going to come back. They're already trying to come back.
Mm-hmm.
You already see the propaganda going around. So, you know, we actually had a meeting today with Ram W down the street.
What's Ram W?
That is the Restaurant Association, Metropolitan Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
So they do
The
they
Rammies.
the Rammies. So they deal with all the surrounding areas, like so the DMV essentially. And we were talking to them about. Now I'm the first chef that's come on board. Our first back of the house has actually come on to help with this whole thing. So there's about 5 to 15 people who come. There's like 5 that go to every meeting. Val.
Yes.
Both Vals who've been on the show. Actually, a lot of them have been on the show, and but they're all back at the house. A couple of restaurant owners, and me being the first chef that actually came on with them today. And we talked to Kathy over there about, hey, we're organizing. We're going to do this. Mm-hmm. How can we do this together? Mm-hmm. Right. So it's almost like we're going to be not a sister company, but just like they're going to be a friend to us, and because they're already in the game. We're just starting, and we're not starting a union.
Right.
We want to start an alliance so nobody else can do this to us again. We're the second largest industry in the city, and we have nobody protecting us.
Hospitality. Restaurant industry.
Yeah.
Hand in hand.
Yeah, and we're getting, like, with my boss telling me just to leave the other day, like, if I had somebody to go back to, like, that's not right.
Right.
Now I can have, and we need to protect the workers.
Right.
You know, and I've been on both sides. I've been an owner. You know, everything, I couldn't sleep at nights because I worried about my employees all the time.
Yeah.
Like, how are we going to pay them? And, you know, so it's scary on both ends. And, like, now, like, there is no safety net for a cook or a chef or a bartender. You know, if that stuff for 77 got passed, people lost a lot.
Right.
I would have lost my line cooks because we couldn't afford them anymore. Because we're paying bartenders $15 an hour over the front of the house, you know?
Well, we appreciate everything that is being done. And so, like all of us here, we all have a particular... Bless you, baby. Molly needs an allergy pill, everybody. So shout out Jameson. Everybody has a particular, you know, handle on their social media. What does your Twitter name mean? What does your Pasteurized Chef? What does it mean? Where did it come from? Because we know it woke since '84 means over here with Ian. I mean, yours is your name.
That's all you need.
Marcus with a CK Dowling.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You know, it just rhymes very well. And mine, of course, shall be of DC. It's just taking my name, shortening it.
It's actually, it came from me and Molly. We had a meeting at the T Street studio.
What is the handle?
It's the Pasteurized Chef.
It's Pasteurized Chef.
Mm-hmm.
So we were over and actually, Marcus, you were at this meeting because I think we actually got some food from the chicken place around the corner. We were talking about starting blogs and whatnot. Right. And we were like, we need to come up with blog names. So Molly and I had a friend getting married. I married downtown because his wife was from Turkey, and they had to do like a fast wedding. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Cooper.
She was pregnant.
No, she wasn't pregnant, but they were going to. I don't know if they were going to deport her, but her green card was running out.
I was like, she was pregnant.
No, her status was running out. And they were much in love, so it wasn't
much respect.
But it wasn't like it was like a shotgun wedding. It was like, I don't want my love of my life to leave. Let's get married. So Molly and I went down there together, and we're in. Was it the Hamilton that we went to? I think it was the Hamilton.
Yeah. 14th.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're sitting there, and we're waiting for the wedding. It was kind of cool because we saw some of our friends, and I'm sitting there trying to, in my head, talk to Molly like, you know, I was trying to say the word pastor. And it's like I want to become a pastor so I can marry people, but in my, I don't know, I was delirious because I stayed up on the night before, so I'm like, I want to pasteurize myself. Well, I lost my shit and just started laughing for like hardcore 5 minutes, and Mom was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" And then once I was done laughing, I said to her, and she started laughing for a few minutes, and I'm like,
there it is.
There's the perfect, like, I'm a chef. I like to go out and do my thing. So I get pasteurized, and I have to pasteurize things. So I was like, that's a great little name.
Yeah, amen. Praise the Lord.
So I blame Molly for that one.
Okay.
Good shit.
So what else? What else in D.C.? What's making you happy right now in D.C.?
My puppy.
Oh, she's so cute, too.
No, I mean, I'm really excited about DC's Fck Show,
the
Heartcast Studio. Like, I love doing this. I love being around. That's why when I had the opportunity to come on, called you and was like, hey, I'm available. Let's do this.
Yeah.
I love this city. I love being here.
What's pissing you off about the city?
Trump. Everything.
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 The Redskins.
Yeah.
But they're in first place.
I'm not a Redskins fan.
We're not going into this conversation again.
No, I mean,
Where's the best place to get mumbo sauce from in the city?
Sorry.
it depends. I like Tony's breakfast.
Tony's.
Like we had
Shout
to
out
stop.
to Justine.
Justin, we love you.
We love you.
Did you see them beat him up when they was trying to steal money?
The video
It's hilarious.
was
And I know all of
amazing.
those girls.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And I'm like, yep.
So
yep.
Tony's Breakfast is on 14th. So they
Yeah.
used to be at the corner of 14th and H. They moved
side, yeah.
on the other side, and then Tony's Place opened. Boo.
Yeah, we don't like you.
We don't like you. So they moved across, and then she opened her restaurant. They do bulgogi.
Bao Bao or whatever.
No, it's not
No,
Bao Bao.
what is it called?
Bibimbap.
Bibimbap.
I don't know, but it's good.
It's good. It's real good.
Is that the one on 19th Street or whatever?
No, it's right behind.
It's,
Bibimbap.
so it's in front. It's in front behind.
Okay.
It's on the main strip, and she's on the
Right.
side strip.
It is just really good. So if you go see Justine at Tony's Breakfast, just go to her other spot for lunch.
Yeah.
Alright.
So yeah. So this is.
But somebody tried to take the cash register and
Yes.
just grabbed it, and they whooped his ass.
I mean, they jumped over, started beating him, everything, and it was just like then the video was released, and we were like, yes,
Yeah, I shared that video a few times. So I was like, go ahead, girl.
yeah, go
Whoop
ahead,
that dude's ass.
yeah. So
That's good shit.
crazy enough. So thank you for being on the show.
No,
You're not
no problem.
going anywhere. We still got stuff to talk about.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm just
Yeah.
No, we got to get him on one of these days to talk about like the
Monsanto.
food Monsanto and sort of like the
Yeah.
entire agribusiness.
You guys just leave when
and the
Monsanto starts
food
talking. I'll just talk the whole
and
show.
Our whole like
'Cause
food chain and food supply.
I really want to talk about. We touched on this earlier
Our
in the
food
car.
supply is very
Food supply.
is dangerously screwed up.
Yeah.
Ward 6, Ward 7.
The food deserts are definitely.
Ward 8, because Ward 6 really does have part of a food desert.
No, I mean, you
for
said
sure.
Street Sense earlier, right? Or you worked with somebody.
No, so I did an article in Street Sense in regards to K2.
Who is Street Sense though?
So Street Sense is the newspaper that you see individuals on the street corner that are homeless
okay.
selling.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did an article about K2.
Because I worked with a gentleman who I thought that was the name of his company, but we did a lot with food deserts. Mm-hmm. And I used to be his chef. So we would go to like centers, like for young.
the rec center.
Yeah, we would go there for a lot of young kids would come there. You know, that's where the parents would drop them off. It'd be anywhere from like 20 to like 200. And I would do cooking demos and talk on the microphone and teach kids how to eat healthy on like no money. Yeah, so
Right.
it was
Yeah.
fun. I did that for about a year.
It still needs to be
Still needs to
done.
happen, yeah.
Well, that's what I was saying. I lost touch with the guy. That's why I was kind of hoping.
Yeah,
Like, it was
no, it
or-
still needs to be done because one thing, as we roll into a new season of us going into fall and winter, a lot of times what people don't realize in DC is that when it snows, like you have to realize there are children that don't eat
Yeah.
because school is closed,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and
Right.
and so that's something else.
It's a shame, too.
As we think about, so they'll open some of the rec centers for emergency. Come in, get your breakfast and lunch, and then you got to trot back home and everything.
Yeah, I mean, people don't understand. They see like bodegas and think that's like places to get food and healthy food at that, and they're getting better. But no, like, but it costs for 50 cents or whatever, $1, you can get
A honey bun,
a Star Crunch, a honey bun,
a
can of soda.
a hot sausage,
Yeah, and that's what people are living off. That's what kids are living off.
a
I mean,
pickled egg.
I'll tell you the thing that gets me. I did a lot of work with.
all the things that
I
I
did a lot
love.
of work with a group called Microgreens. I was in DC for about 2 or 3 years, working with SNAP benefits, and I did a SNAP diet. I lived
Alright.
off of SNAP benefits for.
That's
a
food
month.
stamps, y'all.
Yeah, I lived.
How was that?
Oh, it was
Miserable.
harrowing.
Miserable.
like,
Not heroin.
no, harrowing. Because okay, so things that people need to understand.
The dealer doesn't take
No,
food stamps.
7-Eleven has
Heroin
7-Eleven.
Lies you tell.
Their
Depending on how much you get.
Right, so 7-Eleven's profit margin has like increased significantly in the last 5 years because what they've done is that they've actually turned their store into a retail destination for people who are on SNAP benefits because they give you deals and discounts that are well beneath the typical grocery store discount, but you can get 6 inexpensive chicken wings for $5. And they willfully put these things in front of people who don't have access to actual grocery stores,
Yeah.
but who need to eat immediately.
Just
So
be-
you create like a push and pull on people's actual passionate need to eat.
Yeah.
Immediately.
Because you need to eat.
Right. And the food is already heated.
Yep.
It's already there. It's boxed and packaged.
Yeah.
And you can eat it within 35 seconds. 35 seconds. Get outside the store, boom. It's done.
Fucking.
See, people don't think about that. When you think about the carry out on the corner, people just don't think about that stuff.
No, I mean, just the problem is that we're not eating food anymore. We're eating things that resemble food.
Yeah.
And they're processed. Like, just because you can digest it doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't mean you should eat it.
It is the weekly conversation that Molly and I have about corn.
Corn, listen, I grew up, like I said, in Delaware. Sweet corn is the shit. I can fuck some corn up.
Yeah.
But I also know how my body reacts to it because it's not good for you. And especially when they process it, because it's a GMO product, 98% of the corn is GMO. So if you can find that 2%, you're probably in the Amish country.
Lucky.
Yeah. But you can't find it. Like, and it's just, it's... If you don't understand what GMOs are, I won't get into that conversation because that's a fucking rabbit hole for me.
Yeah.
But like corn's not good. Like, so I try to stay away from any corn products or like byproducts like corn syrup, soda. All that shit's garbage, and yet it's in our bodegas and it's on your SNAP program.
Right. And
Because it's cheap. It's
Yeah.
cheap
It's
calories. It's cheap calories. That's why they're feeding corn to livestock,
Which
I mean,
they're
it's-
allergic to. And it makes them expand, and
Right.
and then they kill them when they expand,
Right.
So they get more money. But then we digest that food,
Right.
Like the agricultural industry was ruining our bodies, let alone, and it's the climate change. Like a lot of climate change comes from
Right.
that.
Just talked
Ethane-
about. We just
ethane-
talked
The
about.
water, the climate, our water crisis is going to start happening because of fucking cheeseburgers.
Right. And
But
we
they're
haven't,
so good.
Are they though?
but we haven't talked about
I
like
don't
like
know.
ethane and methane that's being led into the.
She's like, yes.
We're not even talking about the oceans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's
talking-
happening in the oceans? What's happening to fish stocks? And what's happening?
But what's so crazy is that just
the
here,
ecosystems.
here locally, just that one question that I just asked you turned into a whole global situation that I just don't think a lot of consumers, residents, people, whoever, communities.
They don't give a shit. They can turn on the TV and watch fucking Happy Days. I don't know.
Most people don't think bigger than themselves.
and they
No.
don't see it. If you don't see it, it's not a problem. Like
My-
it's like
you talk about SNAP benefits. My thing is, if I'm getting food stamps and I'm going to the wharf, like, okay, I'm going to get my salmon. I'm going to go get some rockfish. You know what? And give me 4 live crabs because I can take them home, boil them, do what I need to do, maybe enjoy 2, and then put 2 in the freezer and make some soup. You know, we don't think like that.
yeah.
It's girl, we can go get a dozen.
We need to. We need to.
All right.
That Krispy Kreme light's on. I'm going there.
Oh, they don't take EBT, boo.
Oh.
Okay. Shout out to Boo. shout out to Boo.
Shout out to Boo.
Shout out to Boo.
But-
where is Boo?
Space Force.
I took Boo's. I took Boo's spot last night on the show.
Yes.
But I'm curious on your SNAP diet. What was the thing that you ate the most of, or
Okay.
that you got sick of eating?
God, the thing that I got the sickest.
Potatoes.
Oh yeah, no, okay, potatoes and bread.
Yeah.
But grains. are-
Okay, so grains.
That's why 12-year-old girls out here looking like me.
Right.
Yeah. So the thing is that when you go into
Cheap calories.
Okay, so you go into like a 7-Eleven. I learned to love 7-Eleven because it's like you go in, right? And the first thing you see when you walk in any 7-Eleven
Donuts.
is you see all of these like naturally made foods. Like they bring them in on the carton. It's like, oh yeah, these are like made and not in a package, and they're appealing. And you look at the caloric intake, it's not that bad. And they'll post sometimes that things are like the health benefits of eating certain things.
Freshly made.
Yeah, breads, grains, and I'll also say that like mass processed meat products. So like hot dogs.
Yeah.
So good for you.
And like single size hamburgers and chicken patties. The death of me.
I can imagine
in
it
real
was.
life.
Fried
I don't
chicken
want
patties.
I don't want a chicken patty ever
What,
again.
you know, in some of the schools, you know, you're supposed to have like the FDA or whoever did the whole the program,
Right.
The triangle, which
Yeah.
is
The
so
pyramid.
full of shit. That
The
pyramid's
pyramid.
fucking ridiculous.
Yeah.
They consider tomato sauce on pizza a fucking vegetable.
Of course they do.
And I'm like,
Right.
are you kidding me?
Right.
Like I've been dealing with food activism, well, 10, 12 years now. And it was from a friend of mine who was in Florida. So she's like this hippie chick who went to the Everglades, which is like an all natural school. And
Right.
she's like, I'm going to send you some emails. She's like, I want you to look up this company called Monsanto. And this is like I said, 10 years ago, 12 years ago. So nobody's heard of Monsanto until like 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I'm reading this stuff, and I'm like, holy shit, we're all going to die if we don't change the way we think. Not even the way we eat, the way we think about the industry. And me being a chef, seeing it firsthand and knowing how the companies are selling me shit. And, like, I remember they started selling this new steak cut. It was called the Denver cut.
The what?
It was called a Denver cut. It kind of looked like a ball of meat, like a filet mignon almost. And they were selling it to us, and it wasn't until years later.
That's gross.
It wasn't until years later that I actually started dealing with like using chemicals into cooking, which not all chemicals are bad, but like they use the meat glue, which is made as a byproduct of the whey from the when they make cheese, they have all that liquid. That's what it's made from. So it's what they make roast beef from Arby's out of. They take all the scraps of the meat, hit it with meat glue, smack that shit together, and pop it out. So they were selling these scraps of meat to the industry, and we were feeding it to you guys because we're like, holy shit, this cost me what, $1.50 a pound? Fuck it, I'm putting on the cheesesteak or whatever I'm gonna put it on.
Calories.
And that's how we lie to you guys because we're getting lied to because people are trying to. It's the bottom line. They want to make the dollar, and it's that vicious circle until people like me or other people start standing up. Jamie Oliver's of the world.
Right.
That's what I was gonna say.
I
Jamie
fucking love
Oliver.
him. He's taking a lot of shit, but you know what? Good for him because he's taking it on the head and he keeps going because he's passionate about people not dying.
Right.
You know, and getting us healthy and just. If you eat better, you'll be better. Like it's that cycle. It's why I brought you fruit instead of French fries.
That's what Melania Trump says.
Well, I'm sorry that I would. Yeah, definitely. I'm sorry that I was having a craving and wanted French fries.
They are good, though.
They were so good. But I'm going to take some fruit home.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So as we go into all the stories and everything else we talk about, I wanted to make sure that we touched over some non-political, but they really are still political. Culture events that have taken place within the weeks and some things that we should read on as we go on with our lives and everything. And we're always talking about branding. I think every one of us has to deal with branding. We deal with branding here on the show. One of the articles that came out today was in Forbes magazine, and it was how Foot Locker, Nike, North Face, Starbucks created a culture of customer loyalty. You have on North Face. You are banned in D.C.
I do love that shirt.
Thank you.
I did have Starbucks coffee before the before the show.
$5. What do you have?
I don't do corporate.
Yeah. Okay.
Actually, no, I'm wearing Nike, so I'm full of shit.
Okay, you're Nike. Shout out to Payless, I guess, or
Nike.
Macy's, INC, and the nice gentleman on the corner that sells the wonderful scarves. Adidas. So we got a little bit of all of that. Okay
Player.
Yeah. So we got a lot of branding going on in here. So how do we've become customer loyalty. So I know restaurant industry, law, nightlife, and being a creative, events, customer loyalty. Is it constant? Has it gotten better? Has it gotten worse? I know you sent me something. We talked about Yelp earlier. So these dang on, things like Yelp. Are they killing culture? Are they killing the business?
What's the restaurant industry or just business in general?
Just business in
general.
As we talk about
Yelp is empowering people.
Loyalty of brands.
They're empowering people to say whatever they want.
Right.
I think, but then when we all know when you love something, you love something.
Right.
Like you love wrestling, so you'll watch anything wrestling. Like I love food, anything I see food wise. So we get hooked. Like I love Chuck Taylors. If I see a nice pair of Chucks, I'm fucking buying. Yep. But they suck because they hurt your feet after they're the worst shoes in the world, but they're dope, you know. But we keep going back because we keep going back. You know, it's the same reason why we eat Popeyes. I'm gonna fuck Popeyes up.
No,
you Churches?
I can't. I love Churches. Naylor Road. If y'all see, I remember the original Churches. That fried okra.
Oh, they have fried okra?
They had fried okra.
They had fried okra today, yes.
Yeah, I can't eat Popeyes
I'm with you
anymore.
on Popeyes, so I'm with you on Popeyes.
I can't eat it.
No, listen, I got hooked on Popeyes when I lived in New Orleans because it wasn't a fucking fast food joint. It was God. It was like, my first meal was Popeyes, and I'm just like, I've never been to a Popeyes. I just saw Kentucky Fried Chicken. This stuff was like a sit-down restaurant, but it was fast food. It was amazing.
I'll explain about customer loyalty and branding. I'll relate a story from down the street of decades. My club that I helped to, brand and create.
And rewind.
And rewind by decades. The diner. Okay, so
breakfast all day.
Right. The key
Waffles.
the key to branding in this generation, right? So people could do literally anything.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to find, and this is the thing that Nike does well. This is, all these brands that you mentioned in the article. And just to make it brief, you boil down. This is my job when we did decades, is to boil down what people actually like, which is great because here's the thing with branding now, as opposed to branding 30 years ago. The internet's wonderful because you have every single fact, every single figure, every single piece of data that you need to accurately, directly quantify the best thing that people actually liked. Mm-hmm. And when you boil that down and you just give it back to them,
you just do it.
That's all people want at the end of the day is literally the thing they like best. Even if it's terrible for them, even if it will kill them dead on the corner.
Chipotle.
Right, exactly. No,
look,
no.
I said Chipotle.
No, so I'll tell a story about the unicorn waffle. It's a perfect example, Molly. So we're sitting there. We're coming up with the menu for Rewind. And Gio, the chef, Giovanni Oriana, he says, we need an American dish on this unique diner menu. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, I need some American foods. Mm-hmm. And so people are naming like hamburgers. He's like, no, I mean
Doritos Loco
like
Taco.
right. He's like American foods. He's like, and
it's the
so
quintessential American food.
That just sounds like gas.
So I looked at him and I said, M&Ms, and he said, yes, that's what I mean.
No.
And then I said, Hershey's syrup. He says, exactly what I mean. It's like these brands that literally
are just here.
Everybody likes.
Yeah.
No matter what. If you put 100 M&Ms in the middle of a table. Because we did a test, like a soft test.
I'm only eating the green ones.
Right. We had a conversation about it, and then like 2 weeks later, we sat everybody down. We had like the whole staff of all of the clubs. There was 7 different clubs in DC all come in to sit down and like try the menu. And the only thing we didn't tell them was like we had a couple pieces that we were like trying to see what people would feel. Yeah. And so we sat a big giant like container of M&Ms in the middle of every single table. And we proceeded to watch people like just eat M&Ms largely before they ate anything else. And there's like fried chicken, and there's like Juicy Lucy hamburgers, and there's curly fries and popcorn and all sorts of stuff coming out. But the one thing that people were obsessed with
was M&Ms.
The fucking M&Ms.
Were the M&Ms because they know, and that's the other thing too, is that when people know what something tastes like, and they know that they like the flavor. They're like, it's that familiarity. They're like, yes, absolutely. I don't know what this cheeseburger is going to taste like. I'm not quite sure. I mean, I've never seen this before. I don't know the quality of this cheeseburger.
It's the fucking best thing in the world.
Right.
I know.
But then you look at the processed, prepackaged, like
candy.
All of the candy. It has the M imprinted on it. They're the exact same size. They're the exact same shape. They have a unanimity there. You put your hand in there, you know it's going to taste like chocolate. You know it. And you're like, and people like literally sat there, and then they got full, and then they're looking at these like amazing, like beautiful, like dishes, and they're like, I can't eat that. And then we put the unicorn waffle on the menu because we're like, yeah, easy. If you put the M&M on top of a waffle that has ice cream on it, and the sprinkles and the syrup. yeah, we are. But you put that down.
No.
And the thing that people care about the most on the unicorn waffle,
the M&Ms.
The M&Ms.
The M&Ms.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think
crazy.
Talking about Popeyes, I feel like that's we want to talk about branding and what makes brands pop and what makes customers stay loyal to brands. And I feel like there's kind of like a brand cycle. Mm-hmm.
Right.
I think, and Popeyes, I think, is emblematic of it. You saw it as a super high quality, kind of a classic New Orleans place, and I don't know how long ago that was, but now they're everywhere, and they're ubiquitous. So you go from like quality to ubiquity, and you always have to find that balance, because the more you expand, the tougher it is to do quality control. Yeah. On a mass scale. And we all know from the restaurant business, I mean, you have a great meal, you're going to tell one person you have a shitty meal, you're going to tell 20 people.
Yeah.
And that's the
Yelp.
nature, again, why it's a very tough business and why I don't.
I closed my Yelp account.
Good for you. That makes you a good human being.
Because I really never posted anything negative. Now, I posted great things and and my stuff was always getting deleted.
That sucks.
They were
Really?
like, oh, she's getting paid by that person. No,
That's
I'm not.
stupid. Have you ever had the sparkle seasoning from Popeyes?
No.
Yes.
Do you know what it is? It is the. I love it. I have it in my house. Sparkle season is like this Cajun spicing, sprinkleized stuff.
I'm putting some on my eggs tonight.
Oh my
as
god!
soon as I get home.
It's MSG to its finest.
Oh god.
Oh no, MSG is good, girl.
It is.
It's not bad for you. That was a fucking Reader's Digest article back in the 77 or some shit like that. They trick people, and people's. I have a headache now. Like I've seen studies. I watched things.
MSG.
I have MSG at my house. You can't like fucking. There's MSG on these fries. I watched a guy put them on. Like.
And
That's
listen,
why MSG is not.
It's like corn syrup. It's hard to escape.
Yeah, it's in everything. I hate to break it to you. If you
Yeah,
like
it's in
ramen
it.
soup, if you like,
Oh, and I eat ramen like
Listen,
it's going
yeah,
out
if
of
you
style.
like,
I do too.
if you like chicken tenders, they're in it.
Yes.
I'm not a big chicken tenders
They're
person.
in every.
But
they're in everything.
But those glazed chicken tender things from that place with the arches down the street.
Oh, yeah, it's really good.
Oh my God, those things are good. I should go down there. Never mind. Anyway, the next article.
Yes.
Rolling this back.
No, the best.
Rolling.
The best article you'll read all week.
The best article because I stole it from Marcus. This one over here
Yeah.
is the Wisconsin Senate race and the anger. Oh my, of conservative women. Now let me explain to you what type of woman that is. It is not a woman of my color.
I know.
Ian, do you know the answer? Do you know
White
the answer?
women.
White women. Ding 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 ding
Yes.
ding.
Yes.
Honey, they are mad. They big mad.
they big man.
They mad.
No.
You know that's the thing. That's the thing right now. Are you mad or are you mad?
So the crazy part about this whole thing. Okay, so I watched the Stepford Wives maybe 3 weeks ago.
You love them.
That's what you did your research off.
No. I watched the Stepford Wives just in general.
I just meant for the white girls in the Midwest.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
The Swedish ones.
So anyway,
Oh,
Stepford Wives is the white people's Get Out.
yeah. Okay, so I watched Stepford Wives because I wanted to get a sense.
Bushy tail.
I wanted to get a sense.
Are you
Lord,
blushing? You're blushing.
Just driving down the street here.
Just driving
But,
down the street.
Just driving down
Just
the
keep
street.
plowing ahead. Keep
Lady
plowing
But
ahead.
okay, so in any event,
Hashtag Lady Cave.
so I watched.
She shed.
Phenomenal.
Hashtag she shed.
I don't know. Might as well throw gay chicken in there
Oh,
too.
gay chicken hashtag.
Beautiful. So in any event, I watched Stepford Wives because my sense was that I wanted to understand white American female angst
That wasn't funny.
in the Trump administration,
And not antagonized
Oh,
purple
God.
penis
Penis
angst. Yes.
Because
there's a difference.
there's a notion, and this article
You don't want that.
And
That's
this-
painful.
And this article proves it. This article proves it.
It does. It really.
That the worst thing that could have come from Trump being elected president is that it, again, weaponized the anger of white women about the state of America.
Mm-hmm.
And it made white women rise up and say, wait, I have a voice.
Yeah.
And I have something I need to say. And what's fascinating is that you're finding white women now on the conservative side of the bracket who are falling on left and right to the Trumpian doctrine, which means that you have conservative white women, polar split, at a time where Trump needs 100%
Of all, yeah,
of that vote. What's even more fascinating is that in a state like Wisconsin,
their hair.
well, that too, but in any event, no,
It's ridiculous.
no, but in any event, what happens is that you end up,
Wisconsin is forever 80s.
right, where you end up in a situation,
The cheese
where
It is.
people
Cheese curds.
are unable, to get a mandate. So you end up with a situation where there's a hole now in the Republican Party that somebody can fill. There you go.
Oh my god.
This is why we
I
invited him on.
I'm trying.
This is gold.
No, but I feel like
Pure
but
gold.
in regards to politics,
Yeah, because it all comes back
It really
to
does.
politics.
in
Who
regards
needs
to
to fill that hole?
politics, no. The thing is that there's not a person that has been able to stand up and say, all of you white women that are leaning more liberal on the more liberal side of this conservative pocket, nobody's willing to stand up for them. So they don't have a real horse in the game as yet.
Can I just ask a real quick question?
It seems as though
sense.
Hillary wants to stand up again.
Please, Lord, don't say her name.
that's-
Can I?
Don't Beetlejuice.
Real quick question though
Sit
about this
down.
article. So, what was the bottom line on these conservative women? Which way? What?
They're
What are
split
the, what are the?
because there's a primary that they're
So
voting in.
whereas previously they were 100% Trump, now we're seeing split. We're seeing some fall off.
Because there's some women that are starting to actually pay attention. Okay, here's the fascinating.
Trump won Wisconsin by about 60,000 votes.
Right. So here's the fascinating part, and I'm glad you brought that up.
It's ridiculous.
Here's the fascinating part: is that Trump expects. And this is the sad part about Trump. Trump expects that women are going to be a rubber stamp for his initiatives and for his anger, because most of them have husbands that
Who
he
feel
feels
that way.
like are 100% in his camp.
Yeah.
But the second that you had to have women vote, you pulled them into the political conversation.
Yep.
And now these women feel angry when they see Trump do something that directly antagonizes them and their humanity.
Right.
So in the wake of Me Too and things like that, these women are like, wait,
I have
this doesn't feel comfortable.
and I have
Cannot
a voice. And I'm
Grab me
gonna-
by the pussy.
Right.
No, you can't. You cannot. So, as we do every week on DCTBD, we either go through our favorite show, our favorite movie, our favorite lyrics, just our favorite thing of the week. Because I think, we used to do a segment kind of called the Busch. That pretty much is every.
Yeah, we got to a point where we stopped doing that because we're like, oh, the whole previous hour and
whole
15
previous
minutes
hour
has
and
been a
15
Busch
minutes
sesh.
has been a Busch. So I am going to allow you to go first, Marcus, to tell me your favorite thing of the week.
Well, I think it's, for me personally, having the week off now, which was great. So I needed some laughter in my life. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to watch fucking 20 stand-ups.
Yes.
And some of the highlights were the new Joe Rogan.
Yep.
I'm actually watching before I came here the DL Hewley one, which
Yeah.
is
I have to send you one.
that is ridiculous.
Because I just don't remember her name. It's the one that Molly made me watch.
Oh,
the pregnant Asian
Yeah, I do
young
wanna see
lady.
that.
I mean, I almost.
It's yes.
Ali Wong.
I love that name.
I almost pissed myself. I hate you.
No, she's hysterical.
I almost pissed myself. Like,
Oh,
she
don't do
is hilarious. Don't worry, I got something to catch it.
Oh, diapers.
Diaper.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
No, so I mean, so taking a mental health break
Yeah.
was the
Yes.
best part of my week, and telling my boss to go fuck themselves was even better.
Yeah.
That is always
It's
good.
you know what, that it was that relief. We've all walked out of jobs and shit, and just,
Yes.
and there is nothing better when you in your head you want to do something for somebody. You always want to. You don't want to walk out. You want to do right.
Right.
Then when that it just snaps. You're like,
Yep.
fuck you.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you something crazy, and then we're gonna go to Ian, Marcus, and then I'm gonna leave you all with mine. Tomorrow morning, when you get up, you go and shower and everything, look at your eyes and look at how white your eyes are.
Oh, less stress.
Yeah.
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 I feel it.
I can't see it because his face is so white.
Bless
So,
my
Ian,
heart.
tell me-
Bless my heart.
So Ian, tell me your favorite thing of the week.
I'm going to do it. I know we're running out of time, but I actually have two things.
Yeah.
First thing, Heartcast Media, One Love Massive, DCTBD, DC is Fuck, Daily
Yes.
Coast. We're having an election night party
Yes.
here in the building. We're going to be on air from 6 to 7, kind of previewing.
Yep.
From 7 to 9, we're actually, for the folks here, we're going to have election results up, and then we're going to go back on at 9 o'clock. And it's going to be either Election 20 Great Teen
Yeah.
or Election 20 Hate Teen.
Yeah. And I'm wearing a black bodysuit there.
It could go either way.
All right.
My other thing, so we're gonna have details. We're gonna have details out so people can RSVP. But we would love to have people come. I don't believe that we're charging a cover, but we do plan on having some snacks, some drinks. I think it's going to be a lot of BYOB, but we will be on. We might have some special guests, possibly.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can get a DC person.
Yeah, so this is going to be a week from tomorrow.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing our Monday dctbd.
Literally.
We'll be doing our Monday dctbd next week, and then on Tuesday it's going to be big election night party. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep.
Win or lose, whether your guy wins or loses, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So please do come out and support us. My other favorite thing, Sabrina the Teenage Witch. It's dope.
They said it was good.
It's dope.
They said it was good.
It really
it's
is.
dope. Yeah.
I love it.
Other Marcus?
Yeah, so I want to give a shout out to Brianna Younger. She's a writer from North Carolina who spent a lot of time in Washington, D.C. And she's all of the D.C. writers that are, your favorite D.C. writers. That's our favorite writer, and she just started. She just started at the New Yorker this week.
She's a brilliant writer,
which is incredible. At the Queen Bree on Twitter. I'm really, really incredibly proud because I gave her start.
Yes.
So it's
good for you, man.
One of those moments when
you proud.
You see people do well, and you're really, really proud. And
you plant the seed.
And
you
watch it.
You watch
develop
it
grow. And
good.
She's probably the best female music critic in the world right now.
Wow.
And
awesome.
she's
a great writer.
And so this is the argument I want to make to people who are creatives who are watching this from the DC area is that it can be you.
Mm-hmm.
Bree started literally as a intern at WKYS and was a student at Howard University. And she just outworked everybody.
Yeah.
So it's entirely possible. That's the thing. I mean, everybody in this room, we're all people that have outworked a lot of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So if there's any one thing that this...
I've made it on my good looks.
No, you're a handsome devil. I get it.
Pure good looks.
But
my mouth ain't got me far.
But anyway, so
pause.
That's great.
So yeah, that's something I just want to make sure that people take a look out at the Queen Bree BRI on Twitter.
Yeah,
check her out.
I saw it earlier. It was just really great to to hear Marcus talk about it and everything. So it's a sad note, my favorite thing of the week, but it's a good note because the person was here, and my favorite Dr. Seuss quote is "Don't cry because it's over. Smile because it happened." Mm-hmm. And what happened was for color girls who have considered suicide when the rainbow was enough. And I'm going to make Marcus say her name because I always jack it up. And Marcus is the one who met her at Bowie Town Center.
I did. Ntozake Shange.
There it is. She passed away over the weekend. She did live in Bowie. I did not know that until I talked to Marcus, who knows everything.
Can you explain for those who don't know who she is?
So she is a playwright and a poet and just a brilliant woman because that book was actually, it's all poetry. So it's different stories surrounding color girls. And it was eventually made into a movie, and it is gripping, and it kind of it pulls at you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so she has another one, Sassafras, Sybil. I always forget the name of it. It was a book that was in my house. So look her up. Beautiful life. So she definitely was my favorite thing of the week. And my other favorite thing of the week was doing the show this evening.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes. Thank you all so much for joining us. Molly, thank you for being who you are. And if you enjoy the show, all the gentlemen and I will be here again next Monday. You'll be back on your show on Sunday evening.
That's Sunday at 9.
Sunday at 9
Sunday
o'clock.
at 9.
The DC is Fck Show.
Yeah.
Come join, have fun, laugh.
Have fun, laugh. I had a good time yesterday. We'll be back, Ian, Marcus, myself, next Monday at 8 p.m. So if you liked it, click it, comment, share, all that good stuff.
Please do.
And we'll see you next week.
Yes.
Peace
Much
out.
love.